Okay, now we're screen recording. Okay, I'm not going to completely redo exercise 1, but if you click here, this is a simple B plus B7 plus C7. Okay, we got disruption. I'll take the time out of break time. So, okay. So we got a simple, I'm just reviewing here real quick for the screen recording. Got into it yesterday. Exercise 1 was a simple deposits minus drafts equal ending balance. Simple formula. This totals are just adding, simple sum function, and fill across. Exercise 2, beside all the formatting, of course, we have a simple amount paid is subtracted from amount due. So it's a very simple formula, and this is just for the recording. And then exercise 3, this formula here is the cell here times 0.1 or 10 cents to get the amount due. And then we have a count function that does count and does this range or this range, either one would work. And it gives us an 8 for the ones that have overdue holdings. Okay, now everybody, we're up to exercise 4. Quiet. Okay, we're going to highlight seeing capacity, make it 14 point in bold. And do the same thing with conference rooms.
What book is that?
Booklet 4.
Booklet 6.
Yeah, we're booklet 4, exercise 4. Okay, now the room numbers here, highlight all these cells right here and center that. I'm going to make this 200%. Okay, now when you center that, drag the columns a little bit narrower. We don't need such wide columns for such small information. So see what I'm doing here? I'm dragging up between like the E and the F and the G and the H and all that. And I'm dragging this here closer. This is what yours should look like. Okay, so we got seating capacity. We have room number. Now, room number is literally the number on the door of the room. It's not number of rooms. It's literally like there's a room that's called 138. There's a room that's called 141. Now, if you have a conference center, you get conference centers are where they hold meetings and weddings and all that kind of stuff. So some rooms are fairly small, maybe 50 or 35. Some rooms are a little bigger. This one doesn't have any room that's particularly massively big. So they're all probably more for meetings and stuff. So we got the room number, and then we have the capacity. How many people are you allowed in each room? And that's usually based on fire code and stuff like that. Now over here we have two things we need to put a calculation for. One is the room count, how many rooms are there, and the other is the total capacity. Okay, I'm going to have to make this tiny bit smaller so it fits on here. Okay, so the room count, if you remember the count function, go ahead and click that. Now, before we even do our range, here's another way to do the count. You can go to Insert, and they got Function. Go to Insert and Function. This is a little different way of doing it. Now, when you go to Insert and Function, you'll see not only the most commonly used functions, but literally all of the functions. And you might say, how many functions are there, Mr. Rio? If you scroll down here, there's, I think, around 500. Okay, and we're only going to cover 480 of them, so don't worry about it. No, we actually cover about 6 of them. We cover about 6. So the one we're going to put here is count. So click on count. You can double click, and it should put it in there, and then close this. Now, when you first put in count, mine guessed. Here's what it did. And this is just another way of doing things. Whoop. Always get interruptions are the worst.
Yeah.
Hello?
Better edit that out of the screen recording.
Yeah. Okay. Jane, unfortunately, very bad timing. They want to see you up in the attendance office. Well, that's why I do these screen records, so when people miss stuff, they can catch it up. It's Mrs. Carlson's office.
For Mrs. Crawford.
Yeah, where Mrs. Crawford is, yeah. Okay, so the count function, remember a count function's going through a range of cells, and it's counting every cell with a number in it as 1. It doesn't matter what the number is. It doesn't am up. It just says if there is a number in this cell, we're going to count it as 1. So what the count function is, when I inserted it this way, this was a different way of doing it. I went to function on insert, I clicked count, double clicked, and it put a count function in and it guessed. Now if you click there, it's going to show me here, it guessed at a range of B4 to J4. Now, the guess often is wrong. Okay, so that means you have to edit it. Now, if I take a look here, B4 to J4 is pretty darn close. I could use B4 to I4, or I could do the one below here. Either one of those would work for the count. I'm going to just edit this a little bit. I don't want room count. See this cell right here? I don't want that in the range. So remember, a range is bottom, top left to bottom right. So I'm going to change J4 to J3 and hit return. Now that gives me an 8. So what is going on here? There's the count function right there. Now you can manually type this. You could put an equal sign. You could write the word count, put a parenthesis. B3 is this one right here. Now if yours for some reason is in a different location, if yours is in B4, you know, because yours is down a row, you know, make sure it's edited for that. Now this is doing from here, top left, to here, which is bottom right. Yes, top left and bottom right can be in the same row. You have a question? Okay, now you might say, could you have done this? Could you have done this one right here, which would be B5 for me, and do it up to I5? Yes, you could. That would also work. Because the goal is to select the rooms that exist. So that's telling us we have 8 rooms. So that's what the count function does. Kind of a strange function, but it is useful for stuff like this. Now the total capacity is going to be a sum function. Now I'm going to do this one manually because I want to show you different ways of doing things. Okay, I can put an equal sign. You guys know that. Now I could literally do, that's going to be this starting right here, which would be B4, or B5. So I could literally do B5 plus C5 plus D5 and so on, but that would be no point in that. So I'm going to put sum. Now when you type it, it automatically brings up a list of functions. And by the way, in those 500 functions, there are other variations of the sum function we're not going to go into. But I put sum. Now here's a shortcut. I could put a parenthesis and put in B5 and then put a colon and put a I5 and then another parenthesis. Or watch this trick. I got equals and sum and my cursor's right there. Now I'm going to drag across these right here and let go. It automatically put that in. Now, unfortunately, it did not put in the parentheses. So I'm going to have to delete this plus here. I don't know why I put that in there. I'm going to put a parenthesis around it. So that is another way of doing it. Okay, but here's the goal. We want an equal sign. We want SUM for sum. We're going to put a range. That's why the parentheses are there. We put B5 for the top left, and we put I5 for the bottom right. If for some reason yours is in row 6, then do it for row 6. Okay? Now when you do return, it adds it all up, and we got 415 capacity. Any questions, or everybody got that? You got 370. Well, I'm going to take a look here at the handout. Now on the handout, the first room has 50, the second room has 35, 50, 80, 40. Okay, make sure if there's a different number, then either you or I got the wrong number. Okay, let's go exercise 5. Exercise 5 is about temperatures. We have the average temperature, high temperature, low temperature, and we want to calculate average. Believe it or not, this one is really, really simple. Okay? If any of you don't have this typed up, you can be typing and trying to play catch up as we go. Okay, now watch this. This is going to be just like when we do the sum. I'm going to drag here, and here's what I did. I selected there, and I leave the last one blank next to average. What do you think I'm going to do next? Well, if we want to click the pull-down menu that's part of the E. So don't click right on the E because that'll do a sum function. Pull down the little menu next to it. And which one are we going to do?
Average.
Very good. So you click on average, and it will do that. Now, some people would say, just a minute, Mr. Rio, that includes B11, which has nothing in it. Will that hurt the average? Well, I don't think so, but let me double check. I'm going to click on here. I'm going to edit this down to B10 to see if it changes anything. First of all, let me see what it, whoops. If you accidentally, okay, it's 48.4. So if I click on here and I make it B10, which I can do, now it's only doing these here, and I hit return and it did not change it. So in other words, it did not hurt anything to include this. You can edit it just to include these, because that technically would be correct. But including this doesn't hurt it. Now you can do one of two things for this one. You can just repeat what we just did here, or you could click here and drag and do the fill right. Okay? Either one will work. Let's make all of our label text up here bold. We don't have to change the size. If you want to change the color, it's up to you. Make sure your columns in that. You should have done your merge and center. I'm not going to do that in every single one. You guys should know how to do that. Okay. Any questions here on exercise 5? Now we're going to go exercise 6. These are going to move along fairly quickly here. These are pretty easy to do. Okay, exercise 6. I'm flipping over here in the booklet. Okay, now this one, this was not a merge. I'm just going to fix the spelling here. This was not a merge. This was just write semester in there and averages in there. Okay, now if someone did this as a merge and center, I won't hold it against them, but if you look on the sheet, you could have just typed that right in that cell. Okay, let's make all these here bold at the top. I'll make this 200% so you can see better. Let's center this group of data right here. Now what's going on here? We have 3 grades that have occurred, or points for based on grades, and we want to get a semester average. So that might be percent, might be points, I'm not quite sure. So we have 4 students, first term, second term, third term grade, and we want the average. Okay, so this is going to be very simple. We just drag across like that. This, then we leave, this is the blank one. We drag across. We go up here, pull this down, go to average, and it puts in the average. Now when you click on this, let's go ahead and format this first. Do we want our average to be 90 point and then like 6 threes? Let's knock it down to 2 decimals. Except I'm going to show you another way to knock it down to 2 decimals. Watch this trick. See up here, there's a decrease decimal button right there. There's 2 of these here. One increases, one decreases. If your goal is to only decrease the decimal, in other words, you're not out to make a currency or anything like that. You just want to decrease the decimal. You can click that button and click it until you get down to 2. Now, if you decide, whoops, I went too far, you can always go back and increase. That's decrease and increase decimal. Okay, now once you decrease it down to 2, you can click here and you can just do a fill down. And that's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and center that so it looks like the other ones. Okay, any questions on exercise 6? It's average. We did an average function. We did a little bit of formatting. Pretty simple. Okay? So up to this point, I hope you think Excel is quite easy. The next one is sales volume. This one, we're going to first do the currency on this. Make sure it's on the regular currency, so we got the $ right next to it. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to center it. Make it look a little neater. Let's make all these up here bold if you want to add a color to it. Let's make these 2 here centered. So highlight across salesperson, weekly sales, and center it. Now we have to do 2 things down below. We have to do total sales and highest sales. Now total sales, what are you guys doing there? I'm going to come and check these for your points right when we're done with this. So if those are goofing around, not doing anything, they're going to take a big hit. And if you're if you're absent, I want you to be doing a good faith effort. In other words, you should have this out. Okay, well, okay, if you're paying attention and at least put a little bit of data in here and there, that will be a good faith effort, and you can get caught up. But the other people, there should be like this. I'll come around and check them. Actually, this would be a good day to check booklet 4. And if you're absent, you'll be able to make it up. But make it up like use time wisely in class. Okay, now for this here, we got total sales. Now, you're probably looking at that saying, Mr. Rio, that's super simple, right? All you got to do is drag down here, include this here. You can even just click the button. You don't have to pull down the menu because the default is the sum function. And you click there, and there it is. You got your sum. It does all these here. Since we centered the other ones, let's go ahead and center this one. That should be really, really easy. Now, you could manually have typed it with an equal sign, a sum, and a range. Now, the range officially is here to here. Though when you do it this way, you include this one, but that doesn't hurt anything. Adding in a blank one won't change it. Now, this one's going to be different because it's the first time we're doing a max function. So pay attention. It's actually quite simple, but we want the highest sales. Now, what does that mean? That means it's going to go through the range, which for us is going to be these ones right here. And whichever one is the highest, it's going to display it. Okay? So you click here, put an equal sign, okay? And put max, M-A-X. Just type max, M-A-X. Put a parenthesis. And what's the top left of our range? For me, it's B6. It'd be this one right here. Okay, that's the top left of the range. So maybe for you it's B7. For me it's B6. So I'm going to put B6. Then you always put a colon. What's the bottom right of my range? It is, for me it's B13, this one right here. That's the bottom right. This is top left, this is bottom right. So I'm going to put B13. Then I have to put a parenthesis. So that's always how we do the range. We have parentheses, we have a colon, we have the top left and the bottom right. We have an equal sign, we have a max. So what it's going to do, it's going to go through all of these, and whichever one is the biggest, which happens to be this one right here, it's going to display that one. So we're going to hit return, and there it is. It's the same thing that's right there. Now let's go ahead and format this one for center. So that's an introduction to the max function. What is it used for? Well, stuff like this. We want to know which salesperson got the highest sales or what the amount is. Okay, we didn't include their name, we just included their amount. Okay? Any questions on the max function, the sum function? Okay, we're up to number 8. I'm going to change the 200%. Let's make all these labels up here bold. Labels are the text that describe the data. This one's actually going to be very, very simple. We got highway mileage table. We're comparing it all to Miami, Florida. We're going to these cities right here, and how many miles for each. Well, first, let's go ahead and center our miles. Okay. Now, what we want down here is what's called a min function. It's the opposite of max. It's going to put the shortest or the smallest number. So for this here, we have a couple ways we can do this. I'm just going to do it manually. I'm going to put the equal sign. I'm going to put min, which is M-I-N. I'm going to put a parenthesis. What's our top left? The top left for me is C6 right there. So I'm going to put C6. Then I put a colon. Now the bottom right is this one right there. I'm not going to click on it. I'm just going to do that. That one is C13. Now for you it might be slightly different. Then I have to put the other parentheses. So I have equal sign, min, M-I-N, parentheses, C6 colon C13. There's the range right there. I hit return. Now it brings up the shortest distance is 665. I'm going to center that. And as we know by looking up here, that's Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, that's called a min function. You might want to do a save if you haven't done one in a while. Is that easy enough to do a min function? I should hear no music. Okay, we got one more. Okay, the last one for booklet 4. Let's highlight insurance premium update and all the labels and make them bold. We don't have to center them, we just leave it as is. Okay, let's center all the ages. So highlight all the numbers under age. Let's put these in the regular currency. Whichever method you want to do. Who's got music on? What? Caleb? You got headphones on? I'll talk to you later. Talk to you later. Yeah. We're in the middle of lesson. We're doing the work. If you're playing catch up, you start doing it with headphones. This is lesson time. Okay, so the previous premium is here. We have an age. Now this is going to be more difficult. Okay. This is going to be, I'm introducing you to the if function. Now the if function is going to be tricky, but when you think it through logically, it's actually very, very simple. Okay, now how does an if function work? Click here and put an equal sign. Then you're going to put if. Then you're going to put a parenthesis. Now, the reason the if function exists is because you may have two different calculations depending on a factor. In this case, our car insurance, yeah, unfortunately they called you out in the middle of important lessons, but I'm making a video you can watch later. Okay, the if function is designed for situations like this where there's not one formula, there's two. Why would there be two formulas? Because if you don't know this, car insurance rates are higher based on your age. If you are under 25, you pay a higher rate than if you're over 25. So in other words, instead of saying, let's take the person's age or take the previous premium and increase or decrease it, it's going to depend on the age of the person, whether they get an increase or a decrease. So what's inside an if function is three things. The first thing is called a test. In our case, the test is the age. So we're going to put, for me, it's B8. So if you're on the same rows that I am, which probably you should be, it would be B8. So B8 is the first thing inside the parenthesis. If you can't see this real good, there's an equal sign, there's an if, there's a parenthesis, and it says B8. Then the test is B8 smaller than 25? And then you put a comma. So if B8 is smaller than 25, we're going to have one formula. And if it's not, we're going to have another formula. Okay? So the first formula is for if B8 is under 25. So we're going to take the previous premium, which is this right here, which is C8, and we are going to add 35. In other words, if you are under 25, you are getting a $35 increase on your premium. Now we put a comma there. So there's already two things here. There's a test, a comma, and then the first formula is if it's true. So if this is true, if B8 is under 25, it's going to take the previous premium right here, and it's going to add 35. They're going to get an increase. Now after this comma, we're going to do if it's false. What if it's not under 25? So we're going to do, then C8 is going to get a cut of 25. So it's going to be C8 minus 25. And then you put the other parenthesis. Okay? So in review, this if function is about a test, and then if it's true and if it's false. So the test is B8 smaller than 25? That's this one right here. Then if it is, it's going to take the previous premium and it's going to add 35. If it's not, then it's going to take the previous premium and minus 25. Now I'm going to hit return, and it's going to take Juan Carlos's premium and increase it to $867.15. Okay? Now, if you fill this down, because you can fill down an if function, it's going to do that. Some people are going to get increases, some are going to get decreases. Give it a currency. Okay? Now, when it's doing the test, what if somebody is 25, such as Phyllis Ray? Remember, the test was smaller than 25. So would Phyllis Ray get a decrease or an increase? What? She got, no, if it's not smaller than 25, then it does the minus. Okay, so in other words, once you hit 25, your rates go down. Does that make sense? So 25 is just like being 26 or 27 or 28. Okay, you have to be under 25. So that means you gotta be 24. There's nothing in between. That's what I was just saying. If you're on 25, remember the formula up here is it that under 25? Is 25 under 25? No. It's equal, but it's not under. So it's not a smaller than or equal to. It's a smaller than. So therefore, someone 25 is treated just like someone 26 or 27 or 28. They're considered, you're okay, you're not under it. Okay? So you have to be 24 or below to get the rate increase. So that's how insurance works. Okay? Often that is how it works. So that's called the if function. So I'm going to wrap up my little recording.